A crucial week for the markets in other ways, too. The big tech trade as well. Nvidia kicking off its GTC conference today. Jensen Huang expected to deliver a keynote tomorrow night. Joining us now is Melius research analyst Ben Reitzes. He has a $170 price target on Nvidia and a buy rating on the stock. Ben, it's good to have you here to kind of set things up. I mean, you suggest that that Jensen Huang should be able to reassure investors on the big picture vision here. What do you think the hurdles are? What are the bogeys for sort of what he has to persuade investors of at this point?
Well, this time last year, the key thing was that it gives you confidence in the growth for the next year. So what we're looking for is things that help us know the long-term growth path a little better. Stuff like how much data center infrastructure is needed to support robots, autonomous vehicles, and then the new product roadmaps, like going all the way out through 2027. We should actually hear about the Blackwell Ultra, but then next year we get Rubin, and then hopefully he'll preview what's after that. This is usually a real mecca for AI, and we think a lot of partners will be there. So hopefully it gives investors a better feel for long-term growth. However, the short term, too, with all the worries, we should be able to get some good checks on demand.
Yeah, I guess there's a big debate, too, as to whether the DeepSeek announcement and the quick rethink of how long the runway might be for the very CapEx-intensive part of this AI build-out, whether it's going to just put a lid on valuations in general or, essentially keep these stocks on a shorter leash. You mentioned, and as I've discussed this before, the way Apple traded after the introduction of the iPhone, and the market quickly said, well, they're over-earning. They can't keep this up. This is a hit-driven, massive kind of hardware cycle that we can't extrapolate into the future, and the stock got really cheap. How does that bear on Nvidia here?
Well, very similar in our opinion, because they're an industry pioneer and they earn a huge portion of the industry's profits. And I think that over time, Nvidia is going to have similar things as Apple, where they have to transition a bit more towards software. So I think Jensen's also going to announce a lot of software advancements, his NIMS and Cosmos architectures for building. And I think that those things will help drive their software revenue through consumption over the long term, which could help drive their multiple. I think right now the multiple vis-a-vis its growth rate is pretty ridiculously cheap. So the market's sitting there saying, hey, there's going to be a downward revision at some point because no one can keep up this kind of hardware growth rate because of the, just a risk of an overbuild. And I think the degree to which he sets up that what's akin to the Apple services, the software business, the ecosystem, the DGX cloud instances that create that recurring revenue over the long term really is the key to this multiple. They're the only semis company that can really do this and make that transition. And we have a lot of confidence in Jensen. He really obviously gets it a lot better than we do.
I mean, I know you've made the point, Ben, that I think the stock's trading, 40% lower in terms of a forward PE multiple than it was at the introduction of ChatGPT, right? Or right around the launch time.
Yeah, that's right, David. It was around 40 times earnings plus when ChatGPT was announced. Now, obviously, they've seen thousands of percents of gains in their net income, et cetera. But the funny part is it is cheaper, in that mid-20s multiple, even on this year's earnings, showing that folks are really worried about the long-term growth rate decelerating quite a bit. And I think that this is the kind of show where we get more confident in the long-term growth rate, because all these partners are going to be there. You're going to see that this guy drives the industry, this company drives the industry, and it's almost irreplaceable, obviously. So we're hoping to get that good feel and hope we hear a lot more about their TAM, which is pretty open-ended.
Yeah, I mean, with so many of these stocks, positioning and sentiment has played a big role, I feel like. I mean, Intel, for instance, up another 8.25%. Speaking of just off this new CEO announcement. So I wonder what your clients, what you're hearing about Nvidia at this point and how much has changed over the last few weeks, given the sell-off.
Well, it's all about whether right now there's a lot of worries around the Trump administration keeping the AI diffusion rules, potentially banning sales into China, and then obviously disrupting the economy, which then, God forbid, any of the hyperscalers change any CapEx plans. Nvidia obviously would be hit, along with many others. And That's really the cloud that needs to be lifted. We wrote kind of tongue-in-cheek that we were hoping Donald Trump would show up and just say, hey, all's clear. But I think those issues will linger. So I think that, unfortunately, that's going to create a little bit of a multiple hit on the stock until we clear it. But we should clear it, by next year. I mean, there should be some rules of the road.
Yeah, so the cloud, you're waiting for that to lift as to whether these guys keep up the spending. All right, Ben, enjoyed the show. Thanks a lot for helping us out with it.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.